Well, that is all from BBC News at 1, so it's goodbye from me. And on BBC One, we now join the BBC's news teams where you are. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, welcome to BBC London. I'm Thomas Magill. It was a depressing statistic in 2021. 30 young Londoners murdered on the capital streets. It's a problem the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Mark Rowley, says he's determined to tackle as we start a new year. The number of young homicides went down in 2022, but there were still 14 needless deaths. So what's been done to drive this number down further? Sonia Jessup reports.
I've been in the ICU rooms. I've waited outside the door. I've waited outside the door with a mum, and the doctors come out and say he didn't make it.
Hearing how knife crime has destroyed young lives in London. Children murdered or jailed for killing another child. Stephen Addison set up this boxing club in Ilford to try to protect teenagers who are being groomed by criminals.
Low life, sitting outside school, waiting for these vulnerable young people to come out of school. This is real life. Come out of school and say, you want to make a bit of money. You know, they take them young people to country and they get them young people selling drugs.
It's why the Met Commissioner says one of his top priorities is targeting those gangs.
When we look at the drugs trade in London, it's driven by men of violence. The people we're arresting on our county lines operations, 1 in 10 of them have got previous arrests for homicide. 1 in 6 of them have got previous arrests for firearms.
The number of teenagers being killed in the capital was halved last year. In 2021, a record 30 young lives were lost to violence. But that's still 14 teenagers killed last year. What more is being done to keep them safe? The Mayor says he's funding more projects like this, providing safe places for young people and promising them a second chance.
We need more positive role models, more positive institutions that box up crime. I was a young person in the streets in London getting involved in crime. I was first arrested when I was 12. But when I came into this gym, I found purpose.
Don't use your hands! He's now focused on his love of horse riding. Police say they're also increasing patrols in hotspots like Ilford, where teenagers make up a third of the victims of robbery. The Mayor's brought in more police officers to work inside schools. But that's controversial. The case of Child Q, a black schoolgirl strip searched by officers, led to protests last year.
I'm somebody who supports and funds police officers working with schools, school support officers. Why? Because the biggest victims of violent crime are young people. So police officers have to work with young people, and there's got to be a relationship of trust and confidence.
Really appreciate it.
That's the challenge the Met Commissioner also faces, using policing tactics to cut crime that can be controversial while working to build relationships with communities. Sonia Jessup, BBC London.
Residents in southeast London had to be rescued from homes this morning after a burst water main caused major flooding. Homes and the fire station on the A20 in Lee were flooded as 70 fire workers worked to deal with the issue. Drivers are being advised to avoid the area as road closures remain in place. Now, when Anthony and Daniela Wilson woke up one morning, they discovered their car had been stolen from their driveway in Essex. A month later, it was traced to a shipping container in Tilbury Docks, bound for the Central African state of the Congo. It's thought it's one of a growing number of vehicles stolen to order by organised criminals with international connections. Gabby Colenso has more.
This is the moment thieves stole Anthony and Danielle Wilson's Range Rover. It only took them 1 minute. As you can see, they're caught on CCTV creeping onto the driveway as the family slept inside their house in Hatfield Broadoak with their 3-year-old son.
Police had said that there was a chance that I'd been followed because they'd obviously got in it without the keys. So maybe they cloned a key or found a way to get into it when I'd been out and about, and I only ever go anywhere with my little toddler, so it worried me then. I just found it really scary, and the more I thought about it, the worse it got.
When you watch the CCTV, it's almost incredible that somebody walks up to the car and 63 seconds later is driving an expensive car down the driveway, having never seen the keys in their life.
The tracker inside the Range Rover alerted the police that it was being stolen before the signal suddenly disappeared. A month later, it was found inside this container at Tilbury Port, on its way to Africa.
We've unloaded and decanted the whole container and ended up between 8 and 10 stolen vehicles in. Some of them sort of value, say, up to £100,000 a car. The total haul of one of our jobs was well over £1 million, £1 million worth of stolen cars in one hit.
Since the COVID pandemic and the cost of living crisis, thefts have been on the rise. In 2022, Essex Police managed to recover more than 600 cars, compared with 480 the year before, many of which are stolen to order and destined for overseas. Interpol says vehicles like these often end up in Congo or countries such as Kenya or Uganda because of the demand for right-hand drive vehicles. The organisation is now working with African ports to help clamp down on this crime, which it says has become too easy for criminals. As for the Wilsons, they're still deciding whether or not to replace their car for fear of it happening again. Gabby Colenso, BBC London.
Now, it's been a tough start to many who use the capital's trains, and now they're being warned it could be early next week before services return to normal ahead of the latest 48-hour walkout by RMT union members. It's part of the long-running dispute over jobs, pay and conditions. Network Rail are advising passengers only to travel if absolutely necessary. Luke Hanrahan has sent this report from South London.
Here at Bromley South Station, we've seen a number of people turning up very frustrated that the station is closed, but it's one of a number around London that is completely cut off from the transport network. The trains are simply not coming here, and it's not just having an impact on commuters. We spoke to someone earlier who said he spent 2 hours in the car getting into work in central London, but also on the businesses. This dry cleaners behind me has seen very few people over the last few days. It's had a massive impact on his income. But interestingly, there are a mix of opinions here.
It's absolutely disgraceful. It's affecting normal people every day. They get better wages than most people.
We had to drive to London. That was considerable. Took an hour and 3/4 just to get there into central London. So it does have an impact, but still, I think it's a small sacrifice really, so people can have a fair wage.
Everyone is really struggling, so you deserve a decent wage, and you should be allowed to do that.
This block of industrial action finishes tomorrow, which means Londoners can look forward to getting back to work via the train next week. But of course, the disruption is ongoing. That's because negotiations between the RMT and the government have stalled, and people here and in other parts of the capital can expect there to be more strike action further down the line. There'll be more about this story on BBC London at 6:30 this evening.
OK, well, let's see how the weekend weather is looking with Elizabeth.
Hello, good afternoon. It's a wet and a windy weekend in store, but for today, most of us are set to stay completely dry. In fact, there's been a lot of sunshine around so far today, as recorded by our weather watchers at Tower Bridge and again from Hammersmith. Now, as we head through the rest of the afternoon, still some bright and some sunny spells. For most of us, dry, but watch out for the possibility of 1 or 2 showers. There will be more cloud thickening from the west towards the end of the day. Still a noticeable southwesterly wind. Temperatures a little lower than they've been in previous days. And then overnight tonight, we'll see the lowest temperatures first thing. There'll be thickening cloud again from the west. The southwesterly wind is starting to strengthen. And we'll start off the day tomorrow on a mild note with many of our temperatures in double figures. Now, tomorrow there is an approaching weather front. That's going to give us wet and windy weather for much of the day, possibly a bit of brightness just by the end of the day, but until then, gusts of wind of around 40 miles an hour, some heavy downpours of rain for a time as well, but still mild, turning cooler by the end of the day. And then on Sunday, blustery showers on and off through the day, some possibly heavy downpours. It's still rather windy out there. There will be some brighter spells and it will be feeling cooler.
Well, that's all from me. Much more on the strikes and how services are affected on the website, with regular updates on BBC Radio London. Victoria Hollins will be here this evening at 6:30. So until then, have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.